Again, welcome to Your Lifestyle Bank, the presentation of Your Lifestyle Bank. It says here that their future starts with you. There we go. At Your Lifestyle Bank, we are unlocking the doors to financial freedom with knowledge, integrity, and the simple application of proven strategies. And that part's really important. It's the simple application of proven strategies, right? Because they are proven strategies. These are strategies that have been around for well over 140 years. Just most of us don't know about it. As a matter of fact, the best place to hide something is where? Right under your nose. And so to illustrate that, let me ask you a question. What do you guys think about the arrow in FedEx? Now, a friend of mine asked me that a few years ago. He said, what do you think about the arrow in FedEx? I said, there's no arrow in their logo. He goes, yes, there is. I said, no, there isn't. I've been seeing this forever. I see it all over the place. There's no arrow in FedEx. I said, yes, there is. And he said, yes, there is. And then he showed it to me. I'm going to show it to you. It's right there. It's between the E and the X. Between the E and the X. Now, here's the thing. Where I never saw that arrow before, do you know the first thing that I see every time I see one of those trucks go by, or I see a commercial on TV, or I see this written on a billboard? The arrow. Because that's the best place to hide information. And so again, this information that we're going over is nothing new. It's been around. Very, very wealthy people, corporations, banks, they all use this method. And so let's get into that. One of the things that I've learned in my 61 years is that it's not about how much money you earn. That's not what's important. What's important is how much money you keep. How much money you keep. See, if this plate represents your bank account, right? As your money comes into your bank account, by the time it hits that account, even before it hits it, pieces of your money, chunks of your money are already being taken away, right? And so who's the biggest culprit there? Well, it's the Internal Robbery Service, the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, okay? Yes, we're talking about taxes, right? Taxes. You got income taxes, sales taxes, gas, homestead, vehicle, all types of taxes. And it's not just Uncle Sam, because there's federal taxes, there's state taxes, there's local taxes. There are so many hidden taxes that we don't see. And what you need to understand is, on average, 36% of every dollar you earn is going to pay some type of tax. But it's not just the taxes. We live in a society where we're used to financing just about everything we buy. You need to understand that on average, the average citizen in the United States pays 34.5% of every dollar they make to finance charges. Okay? And the thing with finance charges, and now what's going on now because of inflation, what's been going on? Interest rates are going up, right? And everybody's always worried about the interest that they're paying. You've seen people in the past, maybe it's been you, maybe you've heard it. Someone says, I'm getting a mortgage and I was able to get this interest rate. Everybody's worried about the interest rate that they're paying. While the interest rate that you're paying is important, what's more important is the volume of interest that you're paying. So let's take a look at an example, right? Let's say that you've got a $400,000 mortgage at 4%. Now, I know that mortgages have gone up a little bit higher than that, but let's use 4% here. And it's a 30-year mortgage, okay? And so if you had that, $400,000 or 4% over 30 years, you would be paying $1,909.66 a month. Take a look at that first month. In that first month of your $1,909.66 payment, only $576.33 went to principal. $1,333 went to interest. As a matter of fact, over 12 months, you would have paid in your payments $22,915, but only $6,467 would have gone to reducing the amount of money you owe. The rest of it went to pay interest. So that 4% mortgage that you have, in reality, that first year, you paid 71.77% in interest. This is why I'm saying that it's not about the rate that you've got, but the volume of interest that you're paying. The volume of interest that you're paying. There's different types of interest. We're not going to go into that in this presentation, but there are different types of interest. This one, which is an amortized interest, is good for mortgages, for some car loans, and for a few other loans. And what happens is you wind up paying that interest up front. That's why when people say, oh, look, I was able to refinance my house. You know, they got their house, they got their mortgage. It's been 2 or 3 years later, and they were able to refinance their house because they got 0.25% less or 0.5% less. What they don't understand is that they started the clock all over again on the fact that what they're paying in is mostly interest, as opposed to paying down principal. So let's recap. On average, Uncle Sam takes 36% of every dollar. Okay? Finance charges are consuming 34.5% of every dollar, which means you only have 29.5% of every dollar you make to live on. That's 29.5%. In other words, out of every $1,000 in income, you're living on $295. That's $295 to pay rent or pay the principal on your mortgage. That's $295 to put food on the table or to save for a college education or to maintain your car and put in gas, which has gone up, right? Or your utilities or other bills. How about take a vacation and possibly save some for retirement? And then, of course, now we have the hidden tax. Yes, I mentioned it once before. That's inflation. Inflation is a tax. It consumes. Why? You've got to understand, as inflation goes up, your purchasing power goes down. In other words, it takes more monies for you to go to the grocery store and buy the same amount of food that you were buying before. That or anything else you're buying, right? And you've seen that. You've experienced that, right? I mean, for myself, I purchased food for 2 different households. It used to be 8 months ago, 9 months ago, on average, I was spending a little bit over $200 a week in food. Now I'm spending over $400 a week in food. And the weeks where I have to buy paper goods and things to that effect, it's closer to $500 because of inflation. So what if this happened to you? How about if you got sick? Maybe with cancer or heart attack or a stroke. Can that happen to you? I know it can, because it happens every day. It happens every day. I'll tell you more about that in a second. What you don't understand or may not understand is the number one reason households file for personal bankruptcy is due to medical debt. That's the number one reason. So that's why I'm saying you should learn to save and act like a bank. Now, I'm talking about using other people's monies because this is what the banks are good at. Now, I know that right now, today, after what's gone on in the news, oh no, I don't want to act like the banks. Some of them are failing. Well, that's for other reasons. And it has to do with inflation. We're not going to go into that, but there's for other reasons. But a properly run bank, even in today's situation, makes money. Now, if people get scared and there's a run on the bank, they're vulnerable. But they know how to make money because when they work, they don't work with their own money. I'm going to explain that to you in a second here. See, the traditional bank works on the fractional reserve banking system. The fractional reserve banking systems. Banks are required to keep on hand a certain amount of cash that depositors give them. Those are called reserves. All right. Most banks are required to keep about 10% of the deposits. Now, just 1 second, folks. Let me take this toy away from my dog or he's going to be squeaking. Just 1 second, please. I love my dog. Anyhow, I'm sorry. He's 9 months. He's a puppy. So as I was saying, those are the larger banks. The smaller banks actually have to keep less in reserves. And that ties into some of the things that happened recently. But we're not going to go into that. So, let's continue. All banks are going to leverage the deposits to make loans. So, how does that work? What do you mean leverage the deposits? How do banks make money? The first thing you need to understand is that banking is a process. It's not a product. It's a process. So, in a traditional bank, again, what's going to happen is they're going to solicit deposits. right? And they're going to come in, you're going to ask everyone to deposit, I'm going to deposit, you're going to deposit. Everybody online is going to deposit monies into the bank, okay? So now we're depositing monies, and so what happens with that money? Well, they pay us some interest. When I created this slide, interest rates were lower, so they're paying about 1%. It doesn't matter how much you're getting right now. It's the concept I want you to look at. So in this example, they're paying out about 1%. Then what do? They take and they're able to leverage this money. They're able to go to the Federal Reserve and borrow monies from them. Okay? But they leverage it 9-to-1. So for every dollar in deposits, they're able to borrow $9 from the Fed. Then what do? Simply, they take and they loan us back that money. So they are getting monies to loan us because of the monies that we deposited in their accounts, and then they turn around and they loan us that money. They may loan it to us via credit cards. In this example, the credit cards are at 19%. If they have a cost of 1%, that means that they're making 18% on that transaction, right? They loan it to us for mortgages, for cars, for student loans, and for other type loans. In this example, they're making 28% return on their money. But that's a bold-faced lie. Why? Because again, they're leveraging our money 9-to-1. So they're not really making 28%, they're making 252%. And let me tell you this, that's even a lie. They make a lot more than that. Well, how is that? Because some of these loans, like the credit cards and some other loans, are compounding. What does compounding mean? That means compounding is when you either earn or pay, in this case you're paying, interest on top of the interest. So, as an example, if you have $100 that you owe, and your interest means that, now the interest was $5, that means that now you owe $105. When it compounds, that means that they're going to charge you interest, not on the $100, but on the $105. Credit cards are notorious because credit cards compound not annually, not monthly, but daily. Okay? Now, if you pay everything you owe at the end of the month, they don't charge you the interest. But if not, they go back and they charge you the interest for all those daily compoundings. They take your payment, then they reduce that, and that's your new principal balance. And that's why if all you do is pay the minimum on your credit cards, it takes forever to pay it, right? So, compounding. And compounding is hugely important. Let me give you an example, okay? Let's talk about you earning the compounding now instead of you paying the compounding. Let's assume for a second that you could find a place where it was going to compound at 100%. In other words, every year you were going to double your money. So here, if we start with $1, right? If we start with $1 and it doubles every year. No, I don't know. I don't have an investment instrument where you're guaranteed to double your money every year. I don't have that. But I want to show you the power of compounding. And then I want to show you the power of compounding is really the power of uninterrupted compounding. Because something happens when you interrupt the compounding. So here, if you take $1 and you double it every year for 20 years, at the end of 20 years, you have $1 million. $1,048,000, right? But what happens if you interrupt this with paying taxes? Let's say that now you're paying taxes at 17%. Okay, well now, look what happened there. Those $1 million are no longer $1 million. It's $177,000. Well, what if the tax rate that I had to pay wasn't 17%? What if it was 27%? Now those $1 million are down all the way to $57,000. And what have you done to the power of compounding? You destroyed it. Compounding is extremely important. Don't take my word for it. Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Okay? Now, do you know what the number one asset for almost all major banks are? It's something called BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. Bank-owned life insurance. As a matter of fact, Bank of America has over $22 billion of their Tier 1 capital. And Tier 1 capital is that important capital that banks are really taking in, and that's how they're measured. Okay? They have over $22 billion of their Tier 1 capital in BOLI. Why? Because cash values are liquid. They show as assets on their balance sheets. And for the banks, they're going to grow tax deferred at a guaranteed rate. Mind you, when I show you how you can do something similar, it's not going to be tax deferred for you, it's going to be tax free. But let's continue. Again, it's not just Bank of America, and you don't have to take my word for it. You can go to FDIC.com and look it up yourself. If you took a look at Bank of America there, and this one is from January of last year, if you took a look and you look at their balance sheet, and these dollars figures are in thousands, and you take a look at bank-owned premises, fixed assets, that's real estate, it's $19.3 billion. Other real estate owned, $368 million. But if you take a look at insurance, that's on line 41, life insurance assets, that's $24 billion. In other words, they have $19.6 billion in real estate, and they've got a little over $24 billion in life insurance. And it's not just Bank of America. At that time last year, I went and I looked at all of these, and all of these have them too. Why? Because most of the major banks have a large portion of their Tier 1 capital in life insurance. And it's not just banks, it's companies as well. Excuse me. Almost every Fortune 500 company has something called COLI, which is corporate-owned life insurance. This is insurance on their executives. The banks or the corporations own the insurance. They've deposited or overfunded those policies, and now the cash values in those policies are there. So, a man by the name of Warren Buffett, who's one of the top 5 wealthiest men on the planet, says, if poor people would just do what rich people do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. Okay? And just so you guys can laugh a second, it has nothing to do with this. I told you about my puppy. As I'm sitting here talking to you, look what he deposited in my hand. One of his squeaky toys. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this and continue. All right. Anyhow, this is my normal presentation. This is for friends and family of a friend, so I can say things like that. Otherwise, that would just interrupt me. Anyhow, if poor people would do what rich people do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. So let's take a look, because this is an important concept to understand. Okay? Let's take a look. So there's okay. Yep, I'm going to explain that to you in a second, Valerie. Bear with me. Let me do this, and we're going to come back into the insurance and explain how that works. Okay? So savings versus investing. Okay? There's a difference between savings and investing. What's the difference? All investing, all of it. I don't care what you're investing in. I don't care if it's the stock market. I don't care if it's crypto. I don't care, if you're trading. I don't care what you're investing in. I don't care if it's real estate. All investing has volatility to it. All investing has volatility to it. In other words, it can go up and it can go down. It can go up and it can go down, right? Sometimes we see things in the paper and on the news, market crashes on global news, right? We've been seeing that a lot lately. The market has been up and down, up and down, up and down. Crypto's been up and down, a lot down, and I'm sure it's going to go right back up. But it is volatile. What you need to understand about that is this. Assume for a second, we're going to do a little bit of math, not a lot, we're going to do a little bit. Assume for a second you had $100. And this year you lost 10%. What does that mean? That means you lost $10. In other words, what you have left is $90, right? But what happens if next year you gain 10%? How much money do you have? Most people tell me, I have my $100 again. No, that's not true. Because 10% of $90 is $9. So what you have is $99. And so if you look at this chart right here, If you lose 5% one year, you have to make 5.3% just to break even. If you lose 10%, you have to make 11.1% just to break even. But if you're down here, like what's been happening lately, if you're down 25%, that means that you've got to have a growth or a return of 33.3% just to break even. Just to break even. And that's fine. Some people think I'm against investing. I'm not against investing. I help people invest. Besides what I'm going to show you today, I help people invest in other vehicles. Okay? So I'm not against investing. I invest in other things. I love investing. But what you need to understand when you're investing is plain and simply this. When you're investing in anything, you're playing in the casino of life. Okay? And that's not a bad thing. You just need to understand that that's what's going on. Okay? Therefore, I would rather see people have a strong foundation first. And they put their monies there and make sure that they have a strong foundation, then go out and invest from there. So let's take a look at what the ideal savings vehicle should be. The ideal savings vehicle should have a competitive rate of return. It should be guaranteed. It should be liquid. It's my money and I want it when I need it. Okay? I want it to be tax-free, not tax-deferred, but tax-free. I want it to be creditor-proof. What does that mean? That means if someone slips and falls at my house or in my front yard, or if I have a business in my business, if I get sued for any reason, I don't want them, if they win that lawsuit, I don't want them to be able to attach those monies. I want it safe and secure. Okay? And I want it to be ever compounding, because the power of compounding is when you can have monies compounding on itself, when you can have that interest earning interest on top of the interest on top of the interest on top of the interest, and it never ceases. It never gets interrupted. To me, that's the ideal savings vehicle. So remember all these things: competitive rate of return, guaranteed, liquid, tax-free, creditor-proof, and ever compounding. Let's take a look at some of these standard savings vehicles that people have. 401ks, IRAs, mutual funds and bonds, savings account in a bank, real estate, crypto, stock. I mean, there's much more, but I'm just showing you a few, right? And so the question to ask is, do these savings vehicles, can they meet all of these criterias? And the answer is not one of them can. Some meet one or two or three of the criteria, but there isn't anything that I just showed you there that meets every criteria that we were just talking about. However, there's one thing that does. Okay? It is properly structured whole life insurance. It's not the whole life insurance that you may be used to seeing or know about. This one's properly structured. I'm talking about something called the infinite banking concept. And I say it's the ideal savings vehicle. The ideal savings vehicle. Why? Because it has a competitive rate of return. It is guaranteed. It is liquid. It is tax-free. It is creditor-proof. Mind you, in 37 of the 50 states, it is creditor-proof unlimited. Nobody can touch any amount of money. In the other 13 states, it's creditor-proof up to specific limits, and it changes by state. But for the vast amount of people, it is 100% creditor-proof. So much so that not even the IRS can touch the monies in there. You made a mistake on your taxes, they owe you money. They can attach your other things. They can make you sell your house. They can take the monies from your bank account. They can attach other things, but they cannot attach the money that's in that life insurance. Okay? And it is ever compounding. It will never stop growing. So let's talk about it. This is your lifestyle bank. It's powered by the infinite banking concept. Okay? What's the infinite banking concept? The infinite banking concept is a concept that was discovered. He didn't invent it. It was discovered by Nelson Nash. In other words, he discovered what people were doing, and he stuck a name on it. Okay? The name didn't exist before him, but the actions did. What you could do have existed for over 140 years. And so in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, Nelson Nash says the following. The first thing you want to do is the rapid elimination of outside debt. the rapid elimination of outside debt. Remember that 34.5% of your income that's going to somebody else? Okay? So, no, it's not in an offshore account. I will explain this to you. I promise I'm going to get there. I just want to understand the concept first. Okay? So, the rapid elimination of outside debt is the first thing. Because imagine if you can keep more of your monies. Imagine if you could take and finance everything you purchased from yourself, from your bank. Okay? Imagine if you can grow your income and wealth in a tax-free environment for you and your heirs. He also talks in here about not stealing the peas. I'm going to explain that in a second. Okay? And finally, he says, teach you, your family, and others what you've learned. If you've learned this, if you believe in it, if you saw the light, then, as far as I'm concerned, you've got a moral responsibility to teach others the same thing. Whether or not they see it, or like it, or want it, that's on them. But you have to teach your family about it. Okay? So, just so that you know, we are authorized practitioners of the infinite banking concepts. Okay? What is this? How can you do this? Simply create a lifestyle banking system using properly structured whole life insurance and pay yourself instead of the traditional bank. So, when I say properly structured whole life insurance, it's got to be from a mutual company. There's two types of insurance companies. There are stock companies and mutual companies. Stock companies are owned by the stockholders. Mutual companies are owned by the policyholders. So you want this to happen through a mutual company. Okay? When you do that, the monies that you have in your cash value are going to earn a 3% interest rate. That 3% interest rate is going to compound tax-free. So it's a compounding 3%, and it's tax-free compounding. Okay? The mutual company is going to pay you dividends. What are dividends? In the insurance world, dividends are called excess premiums. In reality, what that means is profits. So the mutual company is going to share part of the profits with the owners of the company, which are its policyholders. Okay? Now, you're going to be able to access all the monies you have in here from policy loans that are guaranteed that they're going to give you. Again, this is not your traditional whole life policy. In a traditional whole life policy, you're not going to see any cash value for the first year, depending on the policies, up to 3-4 years later. Good policies are in their second year, but some policies are all the way to 4 years before you see cash value. That's not the way we do things. In this, you're going to have cash value sitting in your account in that first month. Okay? There's going to be cash value here immediately. And no, you cannot go to the Fed the way the regular bank does and borrow monies from the Fed, but you're going to borrow monies from the insurance company. And the insurance company is not going to check your interest rate. They're not looking at your debt to income ratio. They're not looking at the ratio of debt to credit. They're not looking at any of that. As a matter of fact, they don't even report to the credit bureaus. All they want to do, you just call them up or send in a one-page form that says, it's a disbursement form that says, give me this money and I want it as a loan. And so long as the money is in your account, they will give it to you. No questions asked. As a matter of fact, they're not even going to make you pay it back. I want you to pay it back. We're going to talk about that in the next slide. I want you to pay it back. But the insurance company doesn't care if you pay it back. Because see, you've got monies there. If you decide to close it, they'll take what you owe them from the monies you have there. Should something happen to you and you graduate the earth, you pass away, you go meet our Father, what happens? Hey, there's a death benefit. Pup, leave it. Down, stay. I'm sorry that he's talking to us, folks. There's a death benefit attached. So what happens is they take the monies from there. Okay? You have access to tax-free income. And of course, there's the death benefit. Just 1 second. Let me make sure this dog goes to my wife, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to do this. Just 1 second, please. Okay, I apologize for that. And besides that, there's something called lifestyle protection plan. What's a lifestyle protection? Do you remember when I showed you and I said that there was a slide that said, could this happen to you? And it's a slide about you getting sick, about having cancer or a stroke or a heart attack or something to that effect. And I asked you, could this happen to you? I know that it can happen to you because, yes, it's a furry baby. You're absolutely right. I know that this can happen to you because, you know, some of you know me, most of you don't. But as I speak to you, I'm a 5-time cancer survivor. I'm a 5-time cancer survivor. I say that because the first time that I got cancer, I was 33 years old. I was 33 years old. I was on top of the world. I was making very, very good money. My wife's a school teacher in a private school. She doesn't make good money. She does it for the love of teaching, right? And we had taken, and even though I know better, we had taken and we had gotten our dream home. And when we got our dream home, we took everything we had and we put it into that house. And then we took everything we didn't have and we put it into that house. And we do what we humans do. We justified all of that because, hey, I make great money. You know, we'll be able to pay down all this debt very, very shortly. But what happened is we closed on that house on February 14th, Valentine's Day. We thought that was a good omen. And in June of that year, I was diagnosed with cancer. What you need to understand is if you can't do what you normally do, you don't make what you normally make. You don't make what you normally make. So that set me on a financial roller coaster ride that I wouldn't wish on anyone. So this little section here, when I talk about lifestyle protection plan, to me, this is huge. I would never do anything in this sphere of insurance without the insurance policies having this. The lifestyle protection plan is basically living benefits. What does that mean? That means that you have access up to $1 million, depending on the size of your policy. Should there be a terminal illness? Should there be a chronic illness? Should there be a critical illness, a critical accident or disability? You have access to that, and the beauty of it is it's all tax-free. Had I had a policy that had this, I would have never, ever, ever gotten on that financial roller coaster. All right, so let's talk a little bit more so you understand about insurance policies. In every insurance policy, there are two people involved. There's an owner and there's an insured. There's an owner and there's an insured. The owner has to have what's called insurable interest on the insured. The owner has to have insurable interest. Insurable interest means that there has to be some financial interest that the owner has on the life of the person that we're insuring. That's why the vast majority of policies are owned by whom? The owner owns it. The owner is schizophrenic. He has multiple personalities. He's both the owner and the insured. Okay? And so, but that's also why you can own the policy on a member of your family, on your spouse or on your children. You can be the owner, they can be the insured. In my case, I am uninsurable. But I do own a policy on my wife. Okay? So you can be the owner, or you can be the insured, or you can be both. All right? That's why the banks and the corporations have BOLI and COLI, because they take and they insure the life of their executives. The owner is the one that controls the money. The owner is the one that controls the money. So even if this executive leaves the bank or leaves the corporation or the bank, they still own the policy. They still have monies invested there. Okay? And that money is still safe and secure. Just because they left the employee does not mean that they no longer have the policy. No, the policy is still in force. Okay? Now, I want to talk more about how this works specifically. I know there's been a couple of questions. So I want to talk more about how this works specifically. But first, I need you to understand a couple of things. Everything you buy, you are either borrowing and paying interest, or you're paying cash and you're giving up interest. There's no two ways about it. You either borrow and pay interest, or you pay cash and you give up interest. Okay? So let's take a look at an example. Let's say that you wanted to get a car. Okay? And you go out, you want to buy a car, it's $25,000. You go over to Wells Fargo, and they give you a simple interest loan. Typically, they aren't simple interest loans, but let's say that they give you a simple interest loan at 4.65% over 60 months. That means you're going to be paying $467.78 a month, every month, for 60 months. If you multiply that out, that means that you paid the bank back $28,066.80. In other words, you had a cost of borrowing that money of $3,066.80. They gave you 25, you gave them 28, right? However, if this money were in your lifestyle bank, you have $25,000 there, and it's growing at 3% compounding interest over 60 months. These $25,000 turn into $28,652. But Carlos, that's great, but how about the car that I wanted? Oh, yeah, you go over to the insurance company, you say, insurance company, give me $25,000. They say, okay. And they're going to charge you 4.65% interest, which we already know is, a cost of $3,066.80. But you made $3,652. In other words, you made $585 more than what it cost you. So my question to you is simple. Do you rather lose $3,066 or make $585? I don't know about you. I'd rather make the money. But some people say, Carlos, that's why I don't like financing anything. I pay cash. Okay. So let's say you go down to that dealership and you paid cash. There's your cash. You just paid it. They gave you the car. What happened to the cash? You don't have it anymore. It went up in smoke. You just burnt through it, didn't you? So what do you have 5 years later? Well, 5 years later, you've got a car that's worth something. I don't know how much. And you've got a pile of a pile of ash where your cash used to be. However, if you would have financed it from yourself, sure, you would have gotten a loan from the insurance company. They don't care if you paid it back, but you're good at not stealing from yourself, which is what don't steal the peas means. It means don't steal from yourself. You're good at not stealing from yourself, so you took and you paid it back, and it cost you $3,066. You were up $585. So at the end of 5 years, you made $585. You have a car, but you know what else you have? You still have $28,652 that's continuing to earn 3% compounding interest because you never took the money out. You used other people's monies to purchase your car. And while there was a cost to that money, you made more money than what the cost was. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is just on the interest part. I never even talked about the dividends that you're also earning, right? This is just the interest. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit more about those policy loans. Okay. The insurance company has to give it to you. It's guaranteed by contract. Okay. It's going to use the cash value that you have as collateral. That's why they give it to you. So long as you've got cash value, they'll give you that loan. Okay. It will not reduce the cash value, which keeps earning compounding interest. It's a non-direct recognition loan. What does that mean? That simply means that the insurance company is putting on blinders and saying, I know I lent them this money, but I'm going to pretend that I did it, and I'm still going to give them their interest, and I'm still going to let them have that money be factored into the amount of dividends that I'm paying. Okay? Because they put their blinders on. Okay? The insurance company charges you 4.65% simple interest, but you're earning 3% compounding interest, and your dividends continue to accrue. Right? So how do you make money with your lifestyle bank? Again, banking's a process, it's not a product. Now you're the one that's going to be depositing monies here into your bank, into your policy. The thing is that they're called premiums. Okay? And all the monies that's in your cash value is going to grow at 3% compounding interest, plus it's going to accrue dividends. Again, you're going to go to the insurance company and you're going to get a loan when you want to turn around and pay off your debt, pay off your credit cards. But here's the thing. If you were paying 19% interest to your credit cards, why not pay 19% interest to yourself? If you're able to pay down your mortgage and you're paying 4% to the mortgage, why not pay 4% to you? The car note, the same thing. The student loan, the same thing. See, I want you making that 32%. It's not about just paying the things that you currently owe. Yes, we want to get rid of that as fast as possible, but we want to set it up so that you've got monies in here so that when you need to buy something and you need to finance it, you're financing it from yourself. See, I don't want you paying cash. If it's time to take that luxury vacation, don't pay cash for it. Finance it from yourself. If you've got that side hustle, if you've got that business, if you've got something where it's making you monies or extra monies, and when you did your taxes, oops, now you own the IRS, don't finance it anywhere. Whatever you do, don't finance it from Uncle Sam. He really is a crook. Okay? Finance it from yourself. When it's time for you to do your investing, you're buying real estate, you're getting more houses or more hotels, or you're investing in crypto, or you're investing or you're trading. When you're investing in whatever you want to invest in, have the money touch your bank first, then take it out and use that. Because so long as it's in here, it's growing for you. It's ever compounding. Right? We want you making the compounding. All right. So, not all policies are created equal. This is just a quickie so that you understand why this policy is properly structured as opposed to a regular whole life policy that you may have or that you've heard of. In a traditional whole life policy, I say it's not properly structured. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not properly structured for your lifestyle bank. Okay? So, in a traditional whole life policy, if this pie represents the premium and the premium were $100, those $100 would buy X amount of death benefit depending on your age, your sex, and your health. Okay? Now, whole life policies accumulate cash, but in a traditional policy in the first year, you're not going to see any cash at all. It's not going to create any cash accumulation. Nothing. Zip, zilch, nada. Nada. Nothing. Why? Well, because when we talk about agent commissions that you see here, there's agent commissions, there's expenses, there's fees. All of this stuff, the corporation, the insurance company has to pay. The agent commissions alone, I'm not talking about the commission paid to the agent. I'm talking about the commissions paid to the sales force. That could be the agent and the broker or the manager, depending if it's through a brokerage or if it's internal. However, that insurance company is going to market, it has a cost that it's paying the people selling the product and the whole sales team. And that, depending on the corporation, depending on the insurance company, is going to be somewhere between 110 and 140% of the monies you pay that first year. In other words, they're losing money that first year. They've paid more out than that they're going to receive. Besides that, they have all the expenses in getting this policy up and running. Consequently, there is no cash value in the first year. In good policies, you'll see a cash value your second year, and some I've seen as much as 3 and 4 years. How do we do things? We do things differently. Again, if this pie chart represents $100, we're only going to take $30 and buy death benefit with it. We're going to take $70 and we're going to put it into cash. $30 is going to buy death benefit. Now, in order to overfund this, because when you do this, it's a rider that allows you to overfund this policy. When you have this rider and you can overfund this policy, here's the thing. Back in the 80s, the government realized that these banks, these very wealthy people, corporations, they were dumping millions of dollars into their policies. And they said, wait a second, we really didn't make it for that. So they came up with something called a MEC, a Modified Endowment Contract. You never want your policy to become a Modified Endowment Contract. You never want it to MEC. Because if it does, what happens is you lose all those beautiful protections. No longer will this money grow tax-free. And you don't want that to happen because now you're interrupting the whole beauty of this system, right? So we never want it to MEC. So how do we do this so that it doesn't? If we're only using $30 to buy death benefit, I have to have enough death benefit to justify the amount of cash that I'm putting into this policy. So what we do here is we do whole life, but embedded within the whole life is term insurance. So it's a combination of whole life and term, not separate policies, but together in one policy. We embed term inside of the whole life. Okay? And when we do that, we can get enough death benefit so that we can overfund this. The whole life portion, there should be a little dotted line here, is going to generate cash, but not in the first year. It's going to be in the second year. So when we take a look at this cash accumulation, okay, that is 70% of those $100 or $70 of those 100, okay, is coming straight here, and that's available to you immediately, 15 days after you put it in. So which one would you rather have? To me, that's obvious. Okay? So let's take a look at the ideal cash flow. If this were a perfect world, you would take all of your income and you would put it in your lifestyle bank. Mind you, some of it would not hit the vault, would not go into the vault because it would hit the outside of the vault. There is some cost involved. There is some cost of insurance involved. Okay, so not all of it goes in. All of the savings portion of it really goes in, but not all the monies go in. Okay? Then from there, you would take out loans to pay your bills. You would take out loans to do your investing. And you would take from the proceeds of your investments and you would pay yourself back. That would be the ideal situation. But ladies and gentlemen, we do not live in an ideal world. That's why we never take all of someone's income and we put it in here. Because it's not practical. You know, when you want to take that loan out, and it's going to be about 5 days. It's going to be 3 to 5 days before the money shows up in your account. Can you imagine going out to dinner and saying, hey, look, you know, great, it was wonderful. I love it. Thank you. It was, you know, but I'll come back and pay you, you know, 5 days from now when the money shows up in my account. It doesn't work that way. This isn't a regular bank. Okay, this is a banking concept. Consequently, you put your monies in there. We do it as a portion of your free cash flow. And then when you have large things that you want to do, you take the monies out. Okay? However, having said that, for some people, we're able to do a little bit more. For people that own their own house and have equities in their house, okay, we have partnered with a company called First Lien HELOC. Okay, and together, this is the power of leverage. We are really using other people's money now. I'm going to explain this. Okay, and so with this, you're going to be debt free in 7 to 10 years on average. When I say that, I mean totally debt free, including your mortgage. Your house will be paid off. Anything that you owe money on, your cars, credit cards, loans, all of it will be paid off. Typically, on average, between 7 to 10 years. Which means the total value of your house is now the equity that you have in your house. Okay? I mean, the total value of your home is your equity. In other words, it's there for you. You don't know anything. So if your house is worth $500,000 and you don't know anything, that's $500,000 in equity that you have in it, that you can get that money if you needed it. Okay? We're also going to allow you to max fund your lifestyle bank. What does that mean? Do you remember when I was telling you that we do 70-30? So for every $100, 70 is going straight to cash value? Well, the way that we actually do it is we have enough death benefit in there so you can actually put $140. You use $30 for your death benefit, and you can put up to $140 if you want straight into your savings. So that's what I mean by max funding it. We're able to help people get policies and put more monies away than they typically would do because we're going to use other people's monies. We're going to use the bank, which is First Savings Bank, behind First Lien HELOC in order to do that. All right? I know I'm confusing right now. It's too much, but you'll see a little example. Okay? And so by max funding your lifestyle bank, it's going to give you that lifestyle protection. It's going to be liquid creditor-approved capital. That's going to be compounding interest. You're going to have tax-free retirement income, and you're going to be able to generate generational wealth. All right? So how does this HELOC work? Typically, if you own a house and you own a mortgage, your mortgage is in first position. And if you want more monies, if you have equity in it, sometimes you get a second mortgage. That's typically what a HELOC is. A HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. and typically it is in second position. It's a second mortgage. But with first lien HELOC, what happens is it's not in second position. So let's say that you owned the home that had it was worth $500,000, and you had they're going to take and they're going to give you a line of credit worth 90% of that. So they're going to give you a line of credit for $450,000. So if you owed, let's say, $300,000 on your first mortgage, at closing they take and they pay off that mortgage, and the rest of the money's left, right? In this example, you had $450,000 line of credit. They paid off $300,000 in mortgage. You still have $150,000 left as a line of credit that you can take and use whenever you want. So how does this work? What's the difference between a traditional mortgage and a first lien mortgage? We're going to look at money flow, and we're going to look at interest calculations. These are important. Money flow in a traditional mortgage is a closed-end loan. What does that mean? You've got your mortgage, you're paying them. Let's say that you're paying $1,000 a month, and you just paid them. You just made their payment. 2 days later, you say, hey, look, I really need some of that money back. Can you tell them to give you your money back? Can you tell them to send you $500? No, because it's closed end. Once money flows from you back to the mortgage, you're not seeing it anymore. You have no access to it. In the first lien HELOC, it's not that way. It's an open-ended loan. So the money can go in and out freely. You can pay down your balance and turn around and borrow it tomorrow. Okay? You can borrow it the next day. Now, attached to this, the reason that I love this, attached to this, and I need to say this and make sure that it was clear, your lifestyle bank is one thing. We do it all day long for people that either don't own their own homes or don't have equity in their homes or don't want to do the HELOC. Okay? There's two different things. However, we have come up with a way to marrying both that works. Okay? And we're the first company doing this together in a way that makes sense. So anyhow, attached to the HELOC, to the first lien HELOC, is a fully functioning bank account. Fully functioning. You get a debit card. You have checkbooks. You have online banking. Any of the ways that you currently bank, you can do it with this. I'll explain why that's important in a second. Let's talk about the monthly calculations. The interest calculations. In a traditional mortgage, this was calculated when you got the mortgage. They gave you an amortization schedule, right? Because this is an amortized loan. And you know exactly what you're paying in. You can pay a little bit extra if you want, but if you don't, your payments will remain the same for those 15 or those 30 years. And what you're doing is they have calculated what the interest rate is for that month, and they've charged you for it. That's why you're paying more monies up front in interest than you're paying principal, because the principal is higher. Therefore, the interest amount is higher. Okay? In the HELOC, it's not a monthly calculation. It's a daily calculation. And in this example, that's a good thing. What do I mean by that? It uses each daily balance to calculate the individual daily interest charge for that day. At the end of the month, they take each daily charge and they add it together, and that's how they calculate your monthly charge. What does this mean? This means that because of this checking account that's here, this bank account that they give you, when you deposit monies into your checking account, there's something called the sweep. It takes the monies that you have in your checking account, takes it out of there in the middle of the night, and pays down the balance that you owe. You go, oh my gosh, now I have to pay bills. I'm going to show you how that works in a second. Okay? It's a good thing, because when you did that, it paid down your balance. Remember, it's a daily calculation. That means that tomorrow they're going to charge you less interest. Let's take a look at those calculations so you understand what I'm talking about. First, let's look at the cash flow if you have a HELOC. If you have a HELOC, what's going to happen is you get your HELOC. First thing that's going to happen is you're going to pay off your mortgage. Then you're going to pay out any outstanding debt you have, cars, credit cards, other loans. From there, you're going to take out monies from the equity, from the HELOC, and you're going to max fund immediately your lifestyle bank. 15 days later, you can take out monies from your lifestyle bank. Remember, you take out that loan from the insurance company, and what do you do with it? You put it back into the HELOC and pay down the HELOC. From there, you're going to take all of your income, you're going to set it up, all of it. All your income is going to set up and go into that bank account. You want it all, because while you don't need the money, it's lowering the balance in your HELOC, which is lowering the interest that you're having to pay. From there, you take out monies and you go ahead and you pay your living expenses. You go ahead and do your investing. You do whatever you need to do, but you're doing it from your checking account. So let's show you an example of that. Oh, this is important. Before I show you that example, I forgot this was coming up. Remember when I was talking about that loan amortization schedule on $400,000? Remember how this was really 71.77% that you paid in that first year, and how most of your monies went to interest instead of principal? With the HELOC, it's different. With the HELOCs, it's different. So let's take a look at that case study. Here's a couple, 35 years old. Their net monthly income, what they bring into their house, is $10,350. Their house is worth $525,000. They have currently a $400,000 30-year mortgage on it. Okay. Their monthly payment for interest and taxes is $3,010.70. Their household expenses are $4,000. And so that's broken up into living expenses, credit cards where they owe $12,000, a car payment where they owe $19,000. Okay? And so that's the case study. That's what we're looking at. Their free cash flow, in other words, after their household expenses, okay, and their payment to the house, if you take a look and you subtract all of that from their monthly income, their free cash flow is $3,339.30. Now, we went ahead and we did a properly structured whole life plan. We did a Your Lifestyle Bank plan, and an infinite banking plan. In that plan, they had a whole life insurance where we're only going to have them pay it for 10 years. The death benefit is $808,000, and that's costing them $988.65 a month. Okay? Inside of that, they also have an embedded term that's costing them, for $600,000, that's costing them $11.35. So what they are taking and paying into the whole life is $1,000. Now, besides that, this is for this couple. It can change and does change for everyone. Some of these are very small, some of these are very large. For this particular couple, that savings account portion, where I said that they can put monies in, they are maxing it out at $46,000 a year, okay? Using other people's monies. They're using the monies in the equity. They're using the monies from that HELOC, okay? So this is a calculator so you can see. Here is their current mortgage, and there's their monthly payment. Here's the HELOC. Notice that here there's $400,000 in principal, but here it went up to $433,000. Why? Well, they paid off their debts and they paid off the car, okay? So they've got a little bit higher principal that they're starting with. Having said that, this is what happens. In the regular mortgage, after 30 years, they will have paid $287,000 in interest. $287,000. Over here with the HELOC, and it took 30 years to do it. Here with the HELOC, including the things that we're doing with their lifestyle bank, it took them 10 years to pay this. Okay? And the interest that they paid was $142,000, which means they saved $144,000. They saved $144,000. So they paid $144,000 less in interest. They paid off everything in 10 years as opposed to 30 years, plus something else happened. Let's take a look at the summary now at your lifestyle bank. At your lifestyle bank, at the end of year 10, they have a cash value of $626,000. Don't get that excited because they have some loans against that still. So they have an equity of $99,000 at the end of year 10. Okay? They have a wealth transfer. Should something happen to them, they're going to leave their family $2.5 million. But their house that had an equity of $525,000, they don't know anything on that. And even if the house didn't appreciate in 10 years, and it's still only $525,000, that's all monies that they have. So their total equity between the house and the difference in the cash value and the loans that they have of $99,000 is $624,000. That's at year 10. But if you look at year 20, even though they paid no more into their policy, yes, they paid some of the loans back, but they didn't pay any more into the policy. I only had them do it for 10 years. If we take a look now, their cash value is at $1 million. The equity is at $754,000. The wealth transfer is at $2.1 million should they graduate the earth. And even if their house did not appreciate in value and it's still only worth $525,000, the amount of wealth that they have now is $1.279 million. And ladies and gentlemen, we did all of this without affecting their cash flow. In other words, the cash flow that they had at the beginning, okay, they have a larger, or not cash flow, but free cash flow. They have a larger free cash flow now and in those 20 years. There was more monies available to them. Okay? So, Will Rogers, some of you may have heard of him. If you're younger, you probably have no idea who he is. But Will Rogers was a very, very famous man. He said, the problem in America isn't so much what people don't know, it's what people think they know that just ain't so. Okay? So I say, don't do what the banks say, do what they do. Be the banker. Okay? So if you like this, and I'm going to open it up for questions in a second, but if you like this, the next step is to do your lifestyle assessment session with me. What does that mean? What's your lifestyle assessment session? In that, basically, it's getting to know you questions. I need to know you financially. I need to know what your hopes, dreams, and aspiration is. I need to know what, the money's coming in, the money's going out. So we're going to take a look at your current income so we can help you draw up an enhancement plan. We're going to look at your current loan so we can do a payoff plan. We're going to look at your current credit card so we can do a debt elimination plan. We're going to take a look at your current savings and investments so we can do an expansion plan. Okay? To maximize your lifestyle assessment, I need to know everything flowing into the house as far as income. I need to know about it. Everything that you owe as far as loans, your payment, your balance, the interest rate, I need to know that. Same with the credit cards. And also where you have monies invested. I need to be able to do a complete financial analysis because it's time to plan. No, I do not charge for that. I do not charge for that plan. Okay? If you want to set that up with me, you can either call me, okay, email me. Better than that, you can come over here to tinyurl.com/yourlifestyleassessment or simply scan the QR code and it's going to take you to this little page. It's going to ask you to pull in basically contact information so I can contact you. And then as soon as you do that, this comes up here and it's got a little link to my calendar where you can go in and schedule an appointment with me. Okay, and we can sit down and do all that. So now what I want to do is go ahead and open this up for questions. I'll also take a look here because I know that there were some questions that were asked. So if you have a question for me, just go ahead and unmute yourself. And typically I say raise your hand, but there's only a handful of us. So just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question if you have any questions or comments. While I look over here, I don't have anyone helping me today. Well, I look over here to see if there are any questions in here.
Mr. Carlos, this is Valerie.
Yes, Valerie.
I have a question when you were explaining about the insurance policies that the bank takes out.
Yes.
And I said, well, I meant that, okay, so that's like a like 23,000 paid. No, that wasn't the question. So is that what whole life? No, that wasn't my question. My goodness. Oh, so they're overpaying for life insurance and it has a cash value. And is that like putting money or having money in an offshore account and nobody knows about it?
Okay, yeah, I did see that question come up. So let me address a couple of the things you said there. One, they're not overpaying the policy, they're overfunding the policy. And that's a distinction that's worth noting because pay implies it's a cost. Okay? And so when we take a look at these policies, the way that we structure them, have two components to it. They have the component that's I just lost someone. They have the component that's the death benefit, and they have the component that's the savings portion. Okay? So the death benefit part has a cost because there's a cost of insurance. Okay? The other part is basically, I call it a savings account on steroids because you're putting monies in there. And that's where you get to overfund it. So that's what they're doing. They're overfunding those policies because they have a rider that allows them to do so. Okay? And it's all legit and it's all well and good. Okay? So they have a policy that allows them to do that. And no, it's not an offshore account. It's monies that given to the insurance company. The insurance company is the one that has it now. And they do their investing and they do their stuff. The insurance companies that we use have all been in business well over 100 years, and they're top-rated companies, so they're very, very, very solid financially. But your money is now with them. The bank's money is now with them. The corporation's money is now with them because they know that these companies are very, very solid. Okay? And so it's not an offshore account at all. Okay? And
No,
that's
I said like an offshore account,
oh
like an
oh oh
offshore
oh.
account you hear on movies. Well, it's on their money is in an offshore account. It can't be touched. It can't be bothered. When different things go on, bad things go on.
Yes, and that you're right. I misunderstood. I apologize. There you are absolutely right. It is like that. The monies that are in life insurance policies, again, in 37 states are 100% protected. If you've got 100 million, that's an exaggeration, but if you got $100 million in your cash value and you get sued, nobody can touch it. The IRS can't come after it and touch it. No one can touch the money that's in there. Okay? In 13 states, they put a cap as to how much is protected. And that cap varies depending on the state. But for the vast majority of us, okay, for the vast majority of us, like for example, I believe you, Valerie, I forgot, where do you live again? Is it Illinois?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Thank you. In Pennsylvania, it's 100% protected. I know that we have some people that are in Texas, it's 100% protected. Where I am here in Florida, it's 100% protected. In Tennessee, it's 100% protected. In most of the states, it's 100% protected. They can't touch it. Nobody can touch it. It's safe and secure. It is what they call those offshore accounts. It's a safe haven. It is a safe haven. No one can touch the money. It's not secret, but no one can touch it.
Okay. So does anybody else have any questions?
I love you, Valerie.
Oh my.
Okay.
There was another question about overpaying life insurance and it has a cash value, a whole life insurance.
It's whole life insurance. It has to be whole life insurance. Again, you're not overpaying for the insurance because that sounds like, oh my gosh, I'm buying overly expensive insurance. No, you're buying whole life insurance, but your whole life insurance is different than most because it's got something where I can dump monies into it, okay? Where I can save monies. So I've got somewhere where it is. Now, there's different types of insurance policies. There's some policies where you put monies and your monies are invested in the stock market and things to that effect. Yes, we can sell those, but no, we don't do that. For this program, we need the monies to be there. We need the monies to be there guaranteed. And we need to know that it's always going to be there because we want you using it like a bank. The more that you use it like a bank, the more that you borrow from yourself and pay yourself back with a little extra income, the more you're helping all the cash in there to grow.
Okay. Hmm. Okay. So this is teaching us how to manage our finances like rich people or like the upper, I don't want to say upper class, more so like a bank does.
Exactly. And I wouldn't say upper class either because some of those people have no class.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that. You're right about that.
Okay, not all of them. They're just like everywhere. We have good people and bad people. Just because they've got more money does not mean they have more class. So I hate that too. All right. So yes, absolutely. What we're teaching you to do is how to become your own bank or how to save and act like a bank, because these banks have learned how to use other people's monies. Banks, in essence, use our monies. The reason that we have these issues that we're having now with the banks, well, there's many issues, but the biggest reason is they took our monies and they set a good portion of our money aside. Not a good portion, their 10% portion. They set it aside, but they invested that in treasuries, treasury bills, treasury bonds. But when those interest rates were really low, because they needed to keep a reserve, the government makes them, the regulator makes them keep a reserve. What happens is instead of managing that, instead of balancing out their monies, they kept them there. When interest rates started going up, well, what happens? Treasury is now paying more monies, but they have all of this money at almost 0% interest, right? And so now when they have issues, and especially like with the Silicon Valley Bank, a lot of their companies were startups, they were venture capitalists, and they have need of their money. So a bunch of them got together and said, well, something's going on, let's take that money out. As soon as they did that, now this bank needed to be able to have at least 10% in reserves. So they had to sell their bonds. When they sell their bonds, they can no longer get what that bond was worth because no one's going to buy it because they could go to the treasury and buy one that has much better interest rate. So they had to sell those bonds at a discount. When they did that, and everything in the stock market, people that are in there, things caught wind of that, their stocks started to drop. When their stocks started to drop, more people got scared and more people took monies out of that bank. When they did that, they had to sell more of their stuff to the point that they couldn't do it anymore. So that's what happened with that bank. Something similar happened with Signature Bank, but Signature Bank was more into cryptos and things to that effect. So all of this has an effect on people. When I tell you to save and act like a bank, it's not doing that. It's saving and acting like a bank because I want you using other people's monies for your own good. And that's how you, thank you. That's how you put your money someplace safe and secure where it's always going to compound, always going to grow. Then you use somebody else's monies to invest. You use somebody else's monies to finance the things you want to finance, all while your money's continuing to grow. And then you set a repayment schedule for yourself. Okay? The truth of the matter is, so long as you're paying back at least the interest, you're always going to be upside right on that. Okay?
Okay. So, Miss Jennifer Hawk, the Hawks, or Mr. Eugene, do you have any questions at all? Any questions at all?
Jennifer, it looks like you unmuted yourself for a second and then you muted it yourself again. So if you're trying to speak, we cannot hear you.
There you go.
Well, this is the Hawks. Hey, great presentation, Carlos. I'm still moving around, but yes, indeed, some valuable nuggets there. So we appreciate everything.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you,
Thank
Daryl.
you. Thank you.
Okay.
Miss Jennifer, did you want to speak? The mic's yours.
Okay. I can't hear Jennifer.
I can't hear her
Jennifer,
either.
if you have a question, you can put it in the chat and I'll go ahead and answer that. Can't hear you.
Mm-mm. And Eugene, if you have a question, you can unmute your mic or put it in the chat. And while they may be getting that together, Carlos, I have the one question that's, wait, we have
Okay,
one new
thank you.
message.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, she said no question.
So I want to ask the question, the elephant in the room, what if you don't have a lot of money?
That's a great question. That's a great question, and thank you for asking it.
I mean, today, people are, well, we're not millionaires yet. However, if you don't have a lot of money and your money is basically taken up, and paying bills, credit cards, car payments, house rent, water, light, gas, sewage, and you don't have a lot to pull out to put into any of those accounts, then, how would you maneuver something like that?
That's a great question. That's why we do that lifestyle assessment, okay? Because in doing that lifestyle assessment, I get a complete financial picture. Sometimes there are ways, if you're burdened with debt, there are ways to start paying down that debt. Okay, there's different mechanisms to start paying down that debt. So you can get to a place where we can start doing something eventually. Also, as I tell people, it doesn't matter where you start. What matters is that you start. Okay? It doesn't matter where you start. I've got people that come in and literally, they've got $100, $200, $300,000 and they want to take and put that in, and they've got that amount money that they're going to be able to do every year, and they're looking for a vehicle to do this because they see the value in that, and I help them. But we have people all day long that sit there and what they've got is $150, $100, and we help them start. We do this in a way that you can start. So again, we've been talking about the banking concept. If you went today and you have a bank account at Wells Fargo and you wanted another banking account at Wells Fargo, could you go to Wells Fargo and open another checking account? Sure.
No.
Yeah, no, you can. You can have as many accounts in that bank as you want. Not only can you have as many accounts in that bank as you want, but you can take and go across the street to Chase and open another account. You can go then to your credit union and open another account. You can go to TD Bank and open another account. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is we're talking about this as if it were banking in this bank, because it's just a concept, but in this bank, we meet you where you're at and we help you grow. As you grow, if it's time, if you've outgrown the amount of monies that you can put into this and now you want to be able to do more, all we do is open another account. We do another policy. We do another policy on yourself. We can do another policy on a spouse. We can do a policy on a child. So we do, it's not just one and done. It will grow as you grow. Okay? So the idea is to start it and also to help you get out of debt as quickly as possible. And we have plans and ways for you to do that.
Okay. So that assessment is the key.
That assessment is the key. It helps us know exactly where you're at. We do not charge anything for that assessment.
Yeah, great. Good to know. Good to know. Good to know. Well, I think those are all the questions that were in the chat. And I know that this is valuable information, and I will be doing an assessment with you.
Perfect. Excellent. Also for the Hawks and for Gino, I know that you had invited some people that may not have been able to make it. I recorded this. Unfortunately, the recording has some pauses and some things in there because of my furry friend. But nevertheless, this has been recorded. And so if you want it, if you want the link, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to send this to you. Okay?